really hot, I'm not going to lie. Anyone who did a panel yesterday just deserves an award. So I know it's like a good 10 degrees, like less hot today, but we're still pretty warm. Thanks so much for coming to join us, though, in the Female Leaders Club. My name's Lianre. I've actually done a couple of different things here over the years, so I'm a big supporter of what it's doing at MadFest. I am the CEO of the Marketing Academy Foundation, which is a social mobility charity focused on bringing young people from disadvantaged backgrounds into the industry. I know it does deserve a round of applause, thank you. Yeah. But I'm also the exec chair for campaigning for WACL, hence why I'm here today. So to set the scene a little bit, WACL's mission is really, really clear. It's about accelerating gender equality in our industry for the good of us all. Gender equality benefits everyone, and like the evidence really shows that. A recent study by BlackRock showed that gender balanced businesses, the most gender balanced businesses, outperformed the least gender balanced businesses by 29%. It's a huge number. And if we think about current times in our industry, who doesn't want a bump of nearly 30% return on assets? And that's why in 2023 we launched the 50% CEO's Playbook. That was about trying to achieve that utopian gender balance for us all, where we can benefit from it. What we actually discovered through that process was the 5 levers of change, and those are the things that are going to accelerate gender equality in our industry. We're going to be talking about one of those levers today, promote for potential. But sad news is, even with the progress that we've made and the evidence that kind of backs that gender balance, we're still not there. We can't go home. We haven't solved it just yet, unfortunately. And when we actually look at recent studies, particularly around talent and women's progression, a McKinsey study found that 81 women get promoted for every 100 men. And in the UK in particular, men are still 21% more likely to be promoted than women. So that disparity is kind of stopping us getting to that place that we all need to be. Last week, we launched a campaign called Change the Stats, evidence-led, focused on solutions, making sure that we can actually address that balance, and that's why we're having this conversation today. So I'm really, really thrilled to introduce our brilliant panelists. I'm going to ask them to tell you a little bit about themselves. So over to you, Jen.
Thank you, Lianre. So I'm Jennifer Finch. I am a senior manager of marketing operations at Amazon. I've been there for 6.5 years, although I took a year of mat leave kind of back about 6 or 7 weeks, so still very much kind of figuring out what on earth I do for a living, what my job is, all that kind of stuff. And delighted to be here. Thank you, Lianre.
Brilliant. Pardeep?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Lianre. I'm Pardeep. I am the Marketing and Digital Director for Bupa Global. My career has started off in marketing campaign management. I've always been client-side, and I started way back when websites were all about brochureware and direct mail, if anybody remembers that.
There's like the beginning of it. I quite often like to joke with some of the younger generation that when I was starting in social media, the biggest used platform was Bebo, and lots of them don't even know what that is, obviously, but like anyone, yeah, it was massive for teens, it was huge. But there we go. So first off, because we think it's quite an interesting one, you've both had some very interesting career journeys. Tell us a little bit about how you started out on your career journey, like how you got to where you are. Just appear here today. I'll come to you first, Jen.
Okay. So I studied English at university. I was quite good at it, and I had absolutely no clue what I wanted to do, so felt like a good place as any to start. I sort of was drawn to the communications industry, thought agencies sounded quite interesting, got a job as a junior account exec in a tiny little design agency in London, literally sort of 7 people, and that was an amazing grounding because when you start at a company as tiny as that, it means that you get to do lots of different stuff, not just your own job, so that was great. I moved to the South Coast for 5 years, having been a Londoner all my life. I did freelance copywriting for a bit, so the English degree, I guess, was helpful for something briefly. Then came back to London and sort of continued my career in account management in ad agencies. Longest stint there was 7 years at BBH. I can see an ex-BBH colleague in the audience. As part of my sort of role there included leading Homegrown, which was the internship scheme to attract more diverse talent to BBH. I took voluntary redundancy from BBH after 7 years, had a bit of a sort of existential career crisis, took a month off, went to France on my own, ended up contracting for a little while at Lucky Generals, and worked on the Amazon account there. Did the first sort of integrated Christmas campaign, which was bananas, and then kept in touch with the Amazon team. So my next move after that was essentially going through what they call the loop process there, and I've been there for 6.5 years.
Brilliant journey. And it just reminded me of doing a bit of everything in the small agencies, because when I was a junior account exec, I think my other jobs were taking out the post and also actually the accounts, chasing money. Yeah. So they like to kind of go get the money
post.
Yeah.
I used to be in Greenwich Post Office at 4:15 every weekday to get to the last
miss
post.
the last
Yeah, exactly.
Pardeep, tell us about where your career journey to date.
So I had no clue I was going to end up in a corporate business. The closest I knew about working in an office was watching it on TV, because my parents and my family all run their own businesses, so I had no frame of reference around working for a corporate business. Went to uni, did the whole Punjabi thing where got married, had a baby, realised I need to get a job. And then I started off as a assistant product manager. That's my claim to fame. Worked part-time and then saved up, studied, did my master's, and then I started contracting around about the age of 24. And I was trying to compete at that time with my peers that had graduated and were at amazing grad schemes like Procter & Gamble and things like that. And they'd not had the personal story that I'd had. And then, I worked really hard. I wanted to get to head of, because I think if I got to head of, I'd make it. And I always remember we were going on holiday and I was at Heathrow Airport and I got this call from this recruiter. And she said, "You got the job?" And I was like, "Yeah, amazing." And then fast forward to 6 weeks, and my boss called me, and he was a proper marketing director that done TV campaigns, so I was like buzzing. And he said, "Right, if you turn up in Nottingham, and and Katie will meet you at reception." And I was like, "Okay, who's Katie?" And he's like, "It's your assistant." And I got off the phone and I said to my husband, "Yes, I've made it. I've got an assistant." And I really thought that was the pinnacle of my career. Fast forward a couple of years, and I got on a leadership program, and I realised that actually you needed 3 things, Lianre. You needed intelligence, you needed a really hard work ethic, and the ability to learn, and you'd be called talent. And I was called talent then at the grand old age of 42. So yeah, that's I've just kind of worked hard since and got to where I got to.
Yeah, I love it. I think we can all kind of relate to the existential crisis moment in the career, sort of just trying to figure it all out. But the flexibility that you've both kind of needed, and also I suppose the opportunities and where there's been talent spotted in you, I think it's quite interesting for this panel. So there are definitely some barriers that we identified and also are, I think, kind of known in the industry. But when it comes to some of the ways that women don't progress as fast, we look at things like social cloning. So if we already have an imbalance in terms of who's in power in positions of seniority, what tends to happen, usually unconsciously, sometimes consciously, is that people are hired and promoted once they're in, which is whoever's already in power. We don't have enough women, we don't have enough colour, also that there are kind of a lot of these sort of informal closed networks, less kind of clear progression routes. So I'm having a conversation with someone talking about the fact that they've been trying to go for a promotion and about a year in realised they were doing it all wrong as opposed to that, because actually there was a whole different way they should have been doing it, which was much more around kind of networking, finding different kind of advocates in the business, which actually women don't tend to do as much. So when you kind of look at some of these things, how have you navigated and mitigated some against some of those in your own career?
I'd say I think I really led into who I am very early on in my career. That hard work ethic that I have given my background and what I'd seen my parents doing. And I read a post recently on LinkedIn about this almost unconditional feeling that you're brought up with as an immigrant meeting and there was a black woman in the meeting room, and that very rarely happens to me in the sectors I've worked in. And she winked at me, and there was an unspoken sisterhood or sponsorship there, and she invited me after that meeting to lunches, introduced me to organisations like WACL, and she very consciously picked me up and showed me a route. So that happened to me. I realised that then this stuff exists, and you have to be in these networks, and you have to start to moderate your behaviour and learn some of the rules of the game. And then the other thing that happened to me was I had a manager, and he was completely different to me, but he was really into spotting and developing talent and building a diverse team, and he's the one that sent me on my first leadership course, and I got exposed to this whole new thing that was leadership and coaching. So they're the things that have happened to me, and I've tried to emulate those for people that I work with. So yeah, that's how I worked with promote people for potential rather than what they've delivered.
I love that kind of being spotted for your talent and sort of kind of helping you navigate that one, because that's exactly kind of what we need and what we need to do for more women in order to kind of move that forward. Jen?
In terms of barriers, I mean, I was always quite bad with imposter syndrome. I had imposter syndrome quite a lot, and I'd say particularly at working at BBH at the time I did, it was considered one of the most elite agencies. It was a very, I guess, kind of different from my own upbringing. I was sort of very conscious, and a lot of this I kind of put on myself. I always had the sense that I was really lucky to be there, that I'd snuck in through the back door, that somehow I wasn't kind of as worthy, I'd somehow sort of, managed to kind of get in, and I grew up sort of child of first generation immigrants in the 80s and 90s. I was state school educated, and that was probably quite different from a lot of people at BBH at the time, and so I definitely struggled a lot with that. I remember sort of quite early in my career, because I was an account manager there, a sort of senior creative director said to me once, "Thing is, Jen, you're a doer, not a thinker." And like with that sort of imposter syndrome that I'd sort of put on myself as well, I internalised that for years. I carried that for so long, probably still to some degree, no matter how sort of strategic, kind of following all the rest of it. And it took me so long to realise actually what I am is a thinker who does, and you need that.
100%.
But, what really helped me, I think, over time was kind of to Pardeep's point, building those networks of women primarily, kind of in work and out of work, and their confidence in me almost lifting my own confidence up, and that kind of over time, I would say probably was the most helpful thing in terms of the barriers that I'd put on myself and that other people had put on me as well.
I mean, what you were just saying there is almost like a kind of like what to do and also what not to do, because it's brilliant when you talk about the sponsorship and sort of guidance that you were finding in your career, and then also whilst you were having that simultaneously, try not to do things that are negatively impacting women's confidence and their abilities to kind of thrive in the industry by telling them what they are and what they aren't. So I think that's kind of really important. My rage on that one when you said it.
Thank you for your collegiate rage.
Yeah. So kind of moving on to sort of your own businesses, where you are now. We launched our campaign Change the Stats, so we talk about this. How are you kind of changing the stats in your own businesses or outside of that? What are you doing to address some of these things that we've talked about? How have you found what works, what doesn't work? Let us know. I'll come to you first, Jen.
So at Amazon, I lead the learning and development, the training, the partnerships for our team, which is the mass advertising team. It's the favourite part of my role. We work with the Marketing Academy Foundation and lovely Lianre to place apprentices in our team, and they are exceptionally high caliber candidates who come to us and work in Amazon for 12 months. So it's not a placement, it's not work experience, it is a 12-month role. And I think that my favourite thing about it is I think we've had 17 apprentices since 2018, so it's a long-standing partnership. I like to sort of joke to Lianre that I don't work at Greenpeace, right? What I mean by that is if the caliber of apprentices wasn't high enough for Amazon, I promise you, the scheme wouldn't exist in the area of Amazon that I work in. Like, it is, you know, we try our best to ensure that we are a genuinely nice bunch of people. We kind of ensure that kind of the settings there for people to thrive. But if it didn't work, if those people didn't continue to help us raise the bar at Amazon, we wouldn't have the scheme. So I'm particularly proud of that. Like, no one's doing it out of the goodness of their own heart, and that kind of makes me very proud. You know, my kind of very strong belief in terms of hiring teams and promoting for potential is, if you hire the same people again over and over, you're going to get the same result over and over. Like, diversity works. Why would you not try and adopt that? And I feel like the Marketing Academy Foundation apprentice scheme hopefully is a really good example of that.
We've had loads of great people come through. Lots have been women.
Amazing.
Lots
Yes,
haven't. But,
yes.
but there's been kind of some real talent. And I think that kind of barrier we talked about, because we share kind of similar background. I was free school meals growing up. I'm from class from a lower socioeconomic background. And they're just the kind of pathways and accesses in. I'm just really hard-nosed, so I found them, but they weren't that easy. So I think it's really great. Tell us what you think, Pardeep. What are you doing in your own time?
So I think I've lent into being unashamedly me, and I used to kind of hide part of my identity, because you didn't, like you were saying about social cloning, I did that, and actually I'm really proud of the background I have, and I will talk about it at work. Not in a rah-rah kind of look at me amazing way, but if I can, I'm nothing special, and if I can get here, then so can you. And I think there's something to be said about that person I mentioned. They said to me maybe 15 years ago, if you can see it, you can be it, and that's really stayed with me. So I recognise my role in that as a leader. But some of the things that I do is emulate the good practices I've seen. So, you know, I'm a mentor within work and outside of work. I fangirl people and I ask them to mentor me, so I will do that. And I tell people I do that, so it's really, guys, you just go ahead and ask for what you want, because these people are people and they will help you if they can, and they're good people, so I'll do that. And then I also look for people that really are invested in marketing, no matter where they've worked. So I've got somebody in the team that I'm so pleased. She worked in customer services for the last 4 years. She's done a marketing degree, and she's been wanting to get into our team for ages. She's got a secondment, now she's doing events, so I love that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff I will make it my purpose to go and spot and support.
I think all of those things that you just talked about are really important, because you've obviously got to do what's in your sphere of influence and what you can actually control. So can you mentor? Can you spot talent and help kind of unlock and show them some of those hidden pathways that might kind of accelerate them across their careers? Is it about partnerships that you can forge that might help bring kind of different underrepresented talent into the business? There are lots of different ways to think about it and how we can remove those barriers. So we'll finish up with a little bit of advice. One last thing that you'd love to leave the audience with. It could be something good to, you know, what should you do? It could really be a word of caution. Don't do this. But yeah, tell us. I will come to you first, Jen.
I might do two, if that's okay.
Of course.
They'll be quick. I can see a sign saying 5 minutes there, so I won't take too long. My first one is that, you know, DEI, which I guess is a part that is very close to my heart in terms of what I do at Amazon, is under a lot of pressure at the moment. The world is very divided. I've seen some incredibly depressing sort of statistics around sort of people thinking that feminism or gender equality have gone too far, and a lot of women are kind of sort of saying this as well as men. And I just think that now is the time to honestly double down and kind of, if you spot that kind of rhetoric, like, call it out. Like, you know, it is not helpful. Like, the job isn't done. Yes, it's, you know, hopefully a sort of slightly better sort of situation for lots of people in the workspace here versus 15 years ago. There's still a long way to go. My second is, and Pardeep sort of touched on this in earlier questions as well, but leaning on your network, I think, is so important at every stage of career. It used to be that sort of, the more senior you were, potentially those sort of more senior opportunities, you know, you had to kind of, it was better to sort of lean into your networks and kind of find warm leads, etc. I think that is as true at the outset of your career as well, maybe more so than ever. So, you know, it can be quite uncomfortable, but I think go to the thing, go to the event, do the post like really lean, like it's super cheesy, but like, you know, it's going to be so much easier for everyone to kind of support each other and get there together rather than try and do it on their own. So 1, call out any bullshit rhetoric you see, and 2, network your asses off.
Yes, love it. Call out the bullshit, network your asses off. Brilliant. Pardeep, what about you?
Okay, I'll give you one thing not to do, because I did it. So I was made redundant, and I was on that path where, right, I need to get myself a job. And somebody said, oh, I know somebody over here, go and speak to them. And so this person was really influential, and I got off Holborn Tube Station, went to this office, sat in front of this really impressive woman, and she's like, so, right, what can I do for you? And I was like, well, I need a job. Don't do that. What you need to do is know what you want and know what you bring, and then go and speak to people. So my word of advice I would give anybody, whether you're looking or not, is know what it is that you want. Because if you can articulate it and why, somebody else will help you get there. But nobody cares about your career more than you. So if you want that, you want to go for it, just know what it is that you want, what you bring, and then ask for help in getting there.
Brilliant, I love that, yeah. Don't make it hard work for people to help you, I think is, so kind of come with clear ideas about it. We're going to wrap up, but I don't know if we had any questions. No, we're all good. So thank you very, very much for joining us today. There should be a QR code, look at that as if by magic, on the screen for you to download the Change the Stats playbook, full of tips and hints and ways to make sure that you can change the stats in your own business and that we can get forward to that gender-balanced utopia that we all need and want. Thank you very, very much to the panellists. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Give a big round of applause to Lianre, Jennifer and Pardeep. If they can do it, you can do it. I loved that. So big round of applause to them.